welcome to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button so you don't miss any more shocking and captivating stories. Enjoy watching. It was a quiet Tuesday evening when Mark first started to feel the shift. The small signs had been there for weeks, too subtle to notice at first, but now they were impossible to ignore. His wife, Emily, had always been an open book to him. They had been married for 7 years, and in all that time he had never questioned her loyalty. But something had changed. Mark wasn't the type of man to jump to conclusions, but the odd hours, the late night emails, and the small evasions were starting to gnaw at him. It wasn't until the night he woke up to an empty bed that he truly began to feel the weight of it. He stirred in the silence of their bedroom, the dim moonlight filtering in through the blinds. Emily was gone again. Probably just working late, he muttered to himself, but the thought didn't sit right. The next morning, the sense of unease only deepened. Mark had been running late for work, barely squeezing in a cup of coffee before rushing out the door. But as he walked through the kitchen, something caught his eye. On the leather couch in the living room, a damp spot. It wasn't huge, but it was noticeable. Did she spill something? Mark asked himself. He decided to ask Emily when she returned. The entire day passed and still no sign of her. He couldn't help but feel that familiar coldness spreading through his chest. His wife, who used to be his best friend, seemed to be slipping away from him piece by piece. Later that evening, Mark received a call from his old friend, Tom. Tom had always been a jokester, but there was something in his voice that sounded serious. Mark frowned as he answered. "Hey man, you got a minute?" Tom's voice was low, almost hesitant.
"Yeah, what's up?"
Mark replied, his mind already on the edge, sensing something was wrong. I saw Emily tonight with a guy, on the highway. They were in a Mercedes. Mark, I swear I'm not making this up. For a moment, Mark was frozen. He blinked, trying to process the words. His heart skipped a beat. "Tom, you've got to be kidding me," he muttered, his voice trembling with disbelief. "I'm not, man. I thought I should tell you, just in case." There was a pause before Tom continued. "Look, I'm not trying to stir things up, but I thought you should know. You can do what you want with it. But I saw them together. She didn't see me, but I saw them. She was in the passenger seat. He was driving." Mark's mind raced. His friend had always been reliable, never one to lie about something so serious. Still, Mark couldn't bring himself to believe it. He wanted to dismiss it as a misunderstanding. Tom had probably seen someone else. But deep down, he knew that there was a chance it was true. His gut told him there was more to the story than he was willing to admit. I don't know, Tom. I'll talk to her." "Thanks for letting me know," Mark said, his voice shaky. He hung up without another word, and the silence in the house seemed to echo around him. Emily finally came home just after midnight, her face tired but still beautiful, as always. She didn't seem to notice the shift in Mark's demeanor as she kissed him lightly on the cheek and went to the bathroom to wash up. Mark didn't say anything at first. He couldn't. It was only when she came back to the living room that he spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "Emily, when did you start working late? I've been noticing a pattern lately. You're out late more often, and I don't even see you until long after I'm asleep." She froze for a moment, looking over at him with a faint smile. But it didn't reach her eyes. "Mark, I told you. It's just work." "It's nothing to worry about," she replied, brushing it off. She seemed distant. Her usual warmth was missing. Mark nodded, but the unease didn't fade. "What about the Mercedes?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily's eyes widened, and for the briefest second, Mark saw a flash of something, guilt, fear. It was gone too quickly to be sure. "What Mercedes?" she asked, her voice too sharp, too defensive. "The one Tom said he saw you in, with some guy, on the highway." Mark's throat tightened, and he tried to keep his voice steady, but it cracked anyway. She took a step back, her face going pale. "Tom's lying. I don't know what he saw, but he's mistaken. I haven't been with anyone else, Mark. You've got to believe me." Mark stared at her for a long moment, his heart pounding in his chest. He wanted to believe her. He really did. But a part of him, some deep, gut-wrenching part, couldn't ignore the feeling that something wasn't right. He stood up, his hands shaking slightly as he tried to process it all. He knew he couldn't let this go. Not anymore. He spent the next few days watching her closely, tracking every detail. He noticed the way she kept her phone locked at all times, the sudden change in her behavior when he asked innocent questions about her day. But it wasn't until the following Saturday night that everything came to a head. The night was unusually still as Mark lay awake in bed, the weight of the day pressing down on him. Emily had been acting more distant than ever. The cracks in their relationship had been appearing slowly, like little fractures that grew wider the more he ignored them. But tonight, he couldn't ignore it any longer. He had spent the last few days trying to gather evidence, trying to justify the feeling in his gut. But every time he tried to confront Emily, she would deflect, play innocent, act as if everything was perfectly fine. He wanted to believe her. He had to believe her, didn't he? But then there was the smell of perfume on her shirt that wasn't hers, the odd hours she came home at, the excuses about late meetings and last-minute errands. Mark's thoughts spiraled as he stared at the ceiling. Every time he tried to explain it away, his mind would circle back to the same conclusion. She was hiding something. He couldn't take it anymore. Mark decided to follow her the next time she left the house late. He didn't know how, but he would find out the truth. It wasn't just about his suspicions anymore. It was about saving whatever was left of their marriage. Saturday night came, and Mark's heart raced as Emily got dressed for another late meeting. She wasn't aware of the cold, watchful eyes on her. As she slipped into her coat, Mark grabbed his keys and made sure to leave quietly. The air outside was cold and crisp, the streets eerily quiet as he followed her car from a distance. He didn't want to make his presence obvious, but his curiosity and his fear drove him. Emily drove in her usual calm manner, taking the winding roads toward the outskirts of town. Mark kept a good distance behind, trying to remain inconspicuous. His thoughts raced faster than the car. Was this the night he would finally get the answers? Was she really seeing someone else? Every minute that passed felt like an eternity, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. They drove for nearly 20 minutes before Emily's car pulled into a parking lot outside a quiet bar. Mark parked his car a few blocks away and waited. He watched as Emily entered the bar, a dark-haired man stepping out of the shadows to greet her. Mark's heart stopped in his chest. The man was tall, with broad shoulders and a confident air about him. He gave Emily a hug, one that lingered a little too long for Mark's comfort, and then they walked inside together. Mark sat frozen, his mind a whirlwind of emotions, anger, betrayal, disbelief. Was this the guy Tom had seen her with? There was no doubt in Mark's mind now. He had to be the one. The Mercedes, the late nights, the hugs. He could feel the heat of his anger rising. But he stayed put, determined to get the truth, no matter how much it hurt. After what felt like hours, Emily and the man emerged from the bar laughing. They didn't seem to care about anyone watching. They walked to the man's car, a sleek black Mercedes, and drove off into the night. Mark's fists clenched as the blood pounded in his ears. This was it. He couldn't wait anymore. The next morning, Mark was already up when Emily returned home, looking tired but still trying to put on a smile. It was obvious she had been out all night. Her eyes were heavy, and her hair was a little disheveled. She looked surprised to see him up so early. "Mark, what are you doing awake?" she asked, her voice a little too high-pitched. "I've been awake for hours," he said, his voice cold. "And I think we need to talk." Emily's face faltered for a second, but she quickly recovered, forcing a smile. "Sure, we can talk. But what about—" Mark didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I followed you last night, Emily. I saw you with him. I saw the way you two were together. What the hell is going on?" His words were sharp, cutting through the air like a knife. Emily's face went pale, and she took a step back, her eyes wide. For a moment she was speechless. Then she took a deep breath and tried to regain her composure. "Mark, please. It's not what you think. I can explain." "Explain?" Mark laughed bitterly. "Explain what? The late-night meetings, the perfume on your clothes that isn't mine, the lies you've been telling me for months." He stepped closer, his chest tightening with anger. "You've been seeing him behind my back, haven't you?" Emily looked away, unable to meet his gaze. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Mark. I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted any of this to happen," she said, her voice shaky. Mark's heart shattered at her words, but the anger overpowered the pain. "You've already hurt me, Emily. You've already destroyed everything we had." His voice trembled, but he clenched his fists at his sides. "I followed you because I needed to know the truth, and now I have it. You're having an affair. I don't know why I kept denying it, but I can't anymore. This is over." Emily started to protest, but Mark cut her off. "Don't try to justify it. It's too late for that. I've given you every chance to come clean, and you lied to me. Every step of the way. I can't live like this anymore." The confrontation left Mark feeling hollow. Part of him was relieved to finally know the truth, but it came with a bitter taste he couldn't shake. That afternoon, he called a realtor and started making plans to sell the house they had bought together. The home that had once been filled with laughter, love, and promise now felt like a prison. That evening, as the sun set over their suburban neighborhood, Mark went to the garage and started packing his things. It felt surreal. He was leaving the home he had built with Emily, the home that had once been their dream. But now it was just a reminder of the woman who had betrayed him. As he packed his clothes into boxes, Mark couldn't help but think of how much had changed. How everything he thought he knew about his life had been shattered in an instant. Mark had spent the past few days in a numb haze, going through the motions of packing up his life. He had already started making arrangements to sell the house, and the weight of his decision was sinking in. But no matter how many boxes he packed, no matter how many things he removed from the house, nothing seemed to ease the sting of betrayal. He couldn't stop thinking about the man he had seen with Emily. The one she claimed was just a friend. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense anymore. Every moment he spent in the house they had once called home only deepened the hole in his chest. The emptiness was suffocating. On the fourth day, Mark's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. He was sipping coffee, mindlessly scrolling through some paperwork when he noticed a new message. It was from an unknown number. He almost ignored it, assuming it was some spam or a telemarketer. But something told him to open it. The message contained a link to a video. Mark hesitated for a moment, his heart racing. He felt a cold chill settle over him. Part of him didn't want to know what was on the other side, but the other part, the part that was hurting and angry, needed it. He clicked the link. At first, it was just a black screen, but after a few seconds, the video played, and Mark's stomach dropped. It was footage from inside his own home. His home, the living room. The camera angle was from above, like it was placed somewhere discreet, hidden from view. Emily and the man, the same one Mark had seen her with, were in the house. They were sitting on the couch, talking and laughing, completely unaware that they were being filmed. Mark's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the scene unfold. But then it got worse. Emily stood up and the man followed her. They moved toward the kitchen, where Mark could see them through the small window in the doorway. What happened next made Mark's blood run cold. Emily kissed the man, her arms wrapping around him as he pulled her closer. They exchanged whispers, then disappeared out of view. But Mark didn't need to see more. The reality of what was happening hit him like a freight train. His wife, his Emily, was cheating on him in his own house. The video continued for a while, showing them in various parts of the house, talking and laughing as if they were completely at ease, completely comfortable. Mark watched, his hands trembling, as Emily and the man, whose name he now realized was Ryan, seemed to forget all about the life they'd built together. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. There was no shame, just betrayal. As the video neared its end, Mark saw Emily and Ryan sitting on the couch again. This time she pulled out a camera from her bag, a small handheld device, and handed it to him. Mark's heart skipped a beat. She had brought a camera into their house to record this. This wasn't just an affair, it was planned. It was deliberate. The camera clicked on, and Ryan gave her a slow smile before speaking. "Ready for this?" Emily giggled. "Yeah. Let's make sure we get it all on tape." They laughed together. Mark felt like he was choking on the bitter taste of his own disbelief. The video ended abruptly, and Mark was left staring at the screen, his mind in shock. He replayed it over and over, each time the pain growing deeper, more unbearable. He didn't know how long he sat there numb, just watching the betrayal unfold in front of him. A text followed the video. "I thought you should see this before she tries to cover her tracks. She's been doing this for months, Mark. You deserve to know the truth." The sender's name was anonymous, but Mark didn't need to know who it was. He had his suspicions. It had to have been Tom, the friend who had warned him about the affair. He'd probably sent the video out of some sense of guilt or responsibility, but the damage had already been done. The truth was out. Mark stared at the phone, his hands shaking. He had known deep down that something wasn't right. But this was more than he had ever imagined. He could still see Emily's face in his mind, the way she had looked when he confronted her, the way she had tried to downplay everything. And now, seeing the video, he felt like the ground beneath him had cracked open. But there was something else, something that twisted inside him, a kind of cold rage. How could she do this to him? How long had this been going on? He thought back to the night she came home late, the excuses she made, the lies she'd told. The video confirmed everything he had suspected. And now the realization hit him like a slap in the face. Emily didn't just betray him. She was doing it in his own home, his sanctuary. She had no respect for him, no regard for their life together. Mark stood up, his body moving on autopilot. He grabbed his jacket, his keys, and walked out the door. There was no turning back now. He was done. An hour later, Mark stood outside his house, staring at the front door. He had called Emily several times, but she hadn't picked up. Now, with the video in hand, he wasn't going to let her get away with this. He stepped up to the door and rang the bell. It was a few minutes before he heard her footsteps approaching. When she opened the door, her face was a mask of confusion, as if she had no idea what was coming. "Mark, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice strained. "Don't lie to me, Emily," he said, his voice cold and steady. "I know everything." Her face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" He didn't waste time. He pulled out his phone and showed her the video. "I know about Ryan. I know what's been going on in this house. I saw everything. Don't even try to deny it." Her expression faltered, and for the first time in weeks, Mark saw a flicker of genuine fear in her eyes. But there was no apology. There was no remorse. Only the cold realization that her secrets had been exposed. "Mark," she swallowed hard, but her voice lacked conviction. "It's not like you think." "No." He cut her off. "It is exactly like I think. I've seen it. You're not getting away with this. You can't lie to me anymore." She stared at him, her lips trembling. "Please, I didn't mean for it to get this far." "It's just—" "I don't care anymore," Mark interrupted. "We're done, Emily. I'm done. This house, this life we had, it's over." Mark turned and walked away, leaving Emily standing in the doorway, speechless. He didn't look back. He had his closure, and now he was ready to move on. The days that followed were a blur of anger, sadness, and disbelief. Mark had packed up his things, but he hadn't yet left the house. There was still one last thing he needed to do, something he wasn't sure he was strong enough for, but knew he had to face. He needed to tell her parents. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about giving them the truth about what their daughter had done to the man who had loved her, the man who had believed in their family. Emily's parents deserved to know. It was the last thing he owed them, even if it meant exposing the woman he had once shared everything with. He called them that afternoon. Her mother, Mary, answered after the second ring. "Hello, Mark, how are you?" she asked, her voice warm and familiar, filled with kindness. For a moment, Mark couldn't bring himself to speak. The words caught in his throat. He took a deep breath. "I need to talk to you and John," he said quietly. "It's about Emily. It's about what's been going on." Mary's voice immediately shifted, concern rising in her tone. "Mark, what's wrong? You sound so serious." I don't know how to say this, but Emily has been seeing someone else. She's been cheating on me, Mary, for months. I have proof. Video footage. She's been lying to you too." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Mark could almost hear Mary processing the words. Then she spoke, her voice shaking. "What? Mark, are you sure this isn't some mistake?" "I wish it were," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "But I have the video. I saw everything. I followed her and I found out what was really going on." Silence filled the line, thick with the weight of the truth. Finally Mary spoke again, but her voice was softer now. "I had no idea. I had no idea she was capable of something like this. I'm so sorry, Mark. I had no idea." Mark swallowed hard. "I don't know what to do anymore. I don't even know if I can ever look at her the same way. I'm selling the house. I just wanted you to know the truth." Mary's voice cracked. "We'll talk to her. We'll do what we can, but I can't make excuses for her. She's an adult, Mark. I'm sorry. I truly am." After hanging up, Mark sat still for a while, the words from Mary echoing in his mind. Emily had betrayed him, but now her parents knew too. And as much as he had hoped for her to come clean to them herself, he couldn't wait around anymore. He had to move forward. The next day, Mark went to the house one final time. It was a strange feeling, standing there knowing he would never call it home again. The place had been tainted. The memories felt more like shadows now, haunting echoes of a life he had thought he'd built with someone who truly loved him. Emily wasn't home. She had been avoiding him ever since he confronted her. He had tried calling, but she wouldn't answer. Mark didn't care anymore. There was nothing left to say. He stood in the living room, the same place he had once sat with Emily, laughing, planning their future. Now it was empty, just like the love they had shared. He could almost hear her voice in the back of his mind, reminding him of the good times, the promises they had made. But those words meant nothing now. He had been nothing but a fool. Taking one last look around, Mark walked out the door, leaving the house behind. He didn't know where he would go, but he knew he didn't need to stay here anymore. His phone buzzed in his pocket as he reached his car. It was a message from Emily. The text was simple, almost pathetic. "Please, Mark, I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far. Can we talk?" He didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Everything had been said. The lies, the betrayal, the pain. He was done. Days turned into weeks. Mark found himself slowly regaining his sense of self. He moved into a small apartment in the city, far from the place that had once been his home. He spent his days working on a new project, keeping busy, surrounding himself with people who actually cared about him. The emotional scars were still there, raw and exposed, but they were starting to heal. Meanwhile, Emily's life had fallen apart. Her parents were deeply disappointed, and her friends had distanced themselves. She had tried to reach out to Mark to apologize, but he had made it clear that there was no coming back from what she had done. She had broken the trust they had built over years, and nothing could repair it. One evening, Mark was out for a drink with a colleague when he received a text from Tom. He opened it expecting another update on some trivial matter, but the message took him by surprise. "I just saw Emily. She's with Ryan. She looks broken. I don't think she ever realized how much she lost until now. She's alone, Mark." Mark stared at the message for a long moment. He didn't feel anything. There was no joy in knowing Emily was alone, no sense of satisfaction. He didn't wish her harm, but he didn't care anymore. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. He put his phone down and smiled at his colleague across the table. It was a small, genuine smile. For the first time in a long while, Mark felt like he was finally free. He didn't need to waste any more time dwelling on the past. It was over. He raised his glass, the cool liquid catching the light in the bar. He clinked it lightly against his colleagues and took a sip. Sometimes moving on wasn't about seeking revenge. It wasn't about proving a point or getting back at the people who wronged you. It was about finding peace within yourself, and Mark finally was at peace. This was the end of one chapter in Mark's life, but it was only the beginning of the next. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that whatever it was, he was going to face it with his head held high. And as for Emily, wherever she was, she would have to learn to live with the consequences of her actions. Mark had already learned to let go, and he was ready for whatever came next.